This project really shows how when you invest in a community and not just a project, the community will respond really well to it. Trout Unlimited hired me in 2015 to come and work on water projects in Price. The Nature Conservancy started working in Price that same year. Both of us came promoting the System Conservation Pilot Program, which was incentivizing irrigators to conserve water. Basically, we weren't run out of the room, but people weren't super friendly. The phrase that we heard over and over again was, "The damned environmentalists are here to steal our water." We had no intention of stealing any water. We were just trying to work on common sense programs. And so 2015, I started working on some habitat projects. I started trying to make friends with some of the people in the canal companies. And we weren't making a lot of headway. 2016 rolled around, convinced a couple of local people to put in applications in that water program. For the most part, we weren't really welcome in the water community in Price. I asked if I could go present at a carbon canal company meeting, and I learned that they were losing a lot of water out of their canal just through seepage. They estimated that they were losing about 1 CFS per mile, which seems like quite a lot when you have a canal system that's close to 30 miles long. They had told me that water leaked out of the canal and ran across the Holiday Inn Express parking lot. The canal's actually 30 or 40 feet above that parking lot. But one of the first things I did was try and help them understand how much water they were losing. I came out and we attempted a seepage loss study. So much sediment comes into the canal that we weren't able to get a flow rating curve. But what they did decide to do is line the section of canal above the Holiday Inn Express and install this drop structure that's behind me. So if flood flows are coming through, they can use that drop structure to drop water down a wash before it gets to where it could threaten any structures in the community. We invested in the canal lining. It was a big project, a high dollar project. We put about $20,000 on it, but it was a good faith effort to show the canal company that we're invested in making them successful and doing conservation work with them. Canal linings like this are things that we do at TU. It tends to save water and keep water in the stream in the long run. And when we're trying to achieve a target flow of 5 CFS downstream, that's more water that stays in the canal that can exit and go back into the Price River. What I felt like happened there was they saw that we were starting to try and just help out. We weren't really trying to take anything. I didn't ever ask them about, could they lease water or could we figure out how to do an in-stream flow or fish passage. It was just, let's figure out your problems. Behind me is carbon canal diversion. This has been one of the biggest points of the whole Price River irrigation system that we've worked on to help build a relationship with the irrigation community in Price. Really, this is a story of trying to find a win-win situation with Carbon Canal and Trout Unlimited and other organizations that are working here in Price. The diversion was about a 30-foot wall that they'd been working on building up and building on top of each other for probably close to 100 years. It was falling apart. It was a public safety hazard. They were worried that if they got a big flashy monsoon flow, that the dam would give way and it would create flooding downstream into the city of Price. Carbon Canal was awarded a project through NRCS through their Emergency Watershed Protection Program to replace the dam. It was going to be a multi-million-dollar project, which NRCS was going to pay about half. So Carbon Canal was really looking for ways that they could cover the other half of that project amount. We were not able to contribute a whole bunch, but we came in and we had some extra money and were able to contribute $15,000 to the dam without anything in return. Putting a diversion here wasn't going to help Trout Unlimited at all. It actually leaves 18 miles of river corridor without natural flow in it. There's some accretion flow coming in, but no flow going over the diversion that is just direct flow from the river. But what it did is it gave us a footing with the canal company. They knew that we were invested in trying to make them successful. We just hoped that that would come back to help us in the future. Over the course of the project of replacing the diversion, they ran into timeline issues with NRCS. And they were really worried that they were not going to meet the timelines to be able to be reimbursed by NRCS through the Emergency Watershed Protection Program. So one of the things we did is in one of our trips where we were going back to Washington, D.C. to talk with our congressional delegation about water projects in the area, we took Kevin, the canal president, with us. We set up a meeting with NRCS and were able to talk with the regional director that oversees those programs for this area in Washington, D.C., where Kevin was able to plead their case and was able to extend their deadline and able to complete the project. The canal company worked with our local legislature to get budget line items from the state of Utah to help them cover the half of the project that they needed to cover. As we continue to work with the canal company on conservation projects in the future, the diversion is set up really well to be able to pass water and re-water the river below the canal diversion. The other cool thing from the Trout Unlimited perspective is because we've built this relationship with them and they know that we're not going to try and take anything from them, they've expressed willingness to put in a fish passage structure here and to naturalize it up through the golf course that's just to the one side of the diversion. And when we have enough water, we've done enough conservation, we're going to install that so fish can move up and down. So 2017 rolls around, and we ended up with 8 members of Carbon Canal Company listening to us, to me and to Sue Belagamba from the Nature Conservancy, and putting in applications to do System Conservation Pilot Program projects. So that was kind of the first water transactions that happened. They saw that they could do something different with their water, they could still farm, they could make some extra money. So 2017, we had 8 applicants from Carbon Canal Company. We felt like that was a really successful year with System Conservation Pilot Program. 2018, we had 8 applicants. And in the meantime, you know, we were going back to DC, working with our congressional delegation, making sure we could continue to do these programs. We were taking Kevin Cotner, the president of Carbon Canal, with us. And he really became an advocate of this kind of work, seeing it as part of his future of his ag operation.
Well, the main reason we decided to and have been working with Trout Unlimited and Nature also is they built trust with us, number one. It's been a long process. They approached us. We were quite standoffish for a period of time, probably a year, maybe 2 years even. But then once that trust, that relationship kind of started getting built, we could see where it would be beneficial to the Carbon Canal Company and the Irrigator, the shareholders on the company, to participate with them. And then some programs came along where we did see that it would really be financially beneficial for us. So that's what opened the door up for us. I mean, number one, probably the big thing was the financial aspect of it. Some producers, some water users on the system saw that there was something to get from it. They brought something to the table. It wasn't just someone showing up trying to impede or take or steal basically our water rights. And that's always been the concern anytime you talk about water. I think the way Trout and Nature built that trust was, number one, persistence, just the way they approached us and truly bringing something to the table and setting it out there and letting us it wasn't pressure. It was presented to us, and then they let us feel like we were making a decision. I mean, some of it was a no-brainer once we saw it, but they still let us feel like we were in control of the whole process through that point. And so far it's been beneficial. It's been beneficial for Carbon Canal, and hopefully, I think, for Trout and Nature too.
Up until 2015, on this grassy patch behind me, PacifiCorp had their carbon power plant. In 2015, they decommissioned that plant and almost overnight totally disassembled the power plant, and it's completely gone now. With that power plant, there were a whole bunch of water rights that they used for cooling. One of those water rights reverted back to Carbon Canal, who had sold it to PacifiCorp in the 1950s. Since the 1950s, Carbon Canal had done several salinity program deals that didn't allow them to divert that water right, which was a winter water right, anymore. They didn't want to lose that water right, and so they came to me looking for solutions to protect the water right and still use it. From that, we were able to develop an in-stream flow lease and move the water right from this point up to Schofield Dam and be able to improve the situation with the fisheries in the winter. In 2019, the drought contingency plan was signed, so we didn't have SCPP anymore. So in 2019, I started working with them to try and figure out how to protect that water right with an in-stream flow lease. We figured out that for Trout Unlimited to really work on this, we needed to secure water in a stretch of river that had native trout in it. So we decided to move the point of diversion upstream about 25 miles to Schofield Dam so that we could run water through Lower Fish Creek and keep the fishery going through the winter when they were shutting flows off and limiting the production of the brown trout population. But there's also cutthroat in this river, and so it qualifies as the native trout that we needed to be able to do that lease. Welcome to Schofield Dam. This is where it all begins. Our in-stream flow lease starts right here at Schofield Dam. All the water conservation that we do all through the Price River, whether we're sending it down the river or sending it through a canal system, all begins right here. The way this worked out when Carbon Canal came to us and wanted us to lease the water, for Trout Unlimited, for our mission, we wanted to put that water down a stretch of river that would benefit trout populations. When we started going through the process, we figured out pretty quickly that Trout Unlimited, even though we can hold an in-stream flow lease, we were not allowed to move a point of diversion. So we brought in the Utah Division of Wildlife as a third partner to the deal. They hold the in-stream flow lease so we could move the point of diversion up here to the dam. We work with funders and with verifying flows and make the payments to Carbon Canal. So it ends up being a three-way win deal. The Division of Wildlife gets an in-stream flow lease, we get what we want with the trout population, and the Carbon Canal Company protects their water and receives some payment from it. So right now I'm standing in Fish Creek. This is kind of the start of the Price River. This comes together with the White River, and it forms the Price River about 5 miles downstream from here. So in-stream flow leases and conservation work stretch from here, go through Lower Fish Creek, hit the Price River, and then it's about 75 miles of the Price River. It runs through the town of Price, goes through irrigation companies, goes through the desert, and really what we want to do is achieve some target flows of at least 5 CFS at Woodside, which is probably about 75 stream miles from here. Right here we're at the tail end pond of Carbon Canal. Carbon Canal is one of our strongest partners. We can use their canal system to pass conservation water through back to the Price River. There's a couple of pipelines that come off of here, but the rest of the water that ends up here in the tail end pond goes through some washes back to the Price River. Along those washes, there are a couple of irrigators that can pick up some water, but depending on the amount of water that we're conserving, most of it can make it back to the Price River at this point. Behind me is Olson Reservoir. Olson Reservoir in the past has been used as a water storage facility for some of the farm properties that are downstream from here. Water can flow into Olson Reservoir from the washes, but also from the canal. The Nature Conservancy, in conjunction with the Division of Wildlife and Trout Unlimited as a small partner, is working to restore this wetland area. You can see that this year it's really dry. The bulrushes are all dried up and yellowed. Normally it would be a lot wetter than this. So the plan for Olson Reservoir is to restore the dam, be able to store some water here and release it in the late season. That will help us to meet the target flows at Woodside of 5 CFS. From the wildlife conservation side of it, we want to use it as a grow out facility for round-tailed chub and be able to release them back into the Price River. They've been extirpated from the Price River, so Olson Reservoir will be able to help us bring it back. The whole point of doing water transaction work is to get water downstream to a point that's useful to us. Behind me is Salvani Diversion, which is the last diversion in place on the Price River before we can get it to the Green and down into the Colorado and Lake Powell. So we have several partners working with us to create a solution to getting water downstream and still help the landowner get water onto his property. There are several possible solutions here. We could potentially rebuild a new diversion. We could pull this diversion out, maybe pump water onto their property, or there's the potential of possibly purchasing the property and being able to remove diversions completely. Okay, we're on the Price River. We're right below the town of Woodside. One of the main conservation goals that we have on the Price River is to get 5 CFS flowing here during the late summer months when it's really hot. We're getting close with some of the water transaction work that we're doing, and especially the Olson Reservoir project that the Nature Conservancy is leading. We're getting close to being able to achieve that here. Those flows would benefit Colorado River endangered fish species as well as Utah conservation species. So Trout Unlimited's method of doing business with putting a person in a place to invest in communities and to sometimes invest in things that don't really make sense to our mission, with the end goal of having the community rally around some of the things that we want to do, has really worked here in Price. And we're seeing stuff like this in-stream flow lease come to us, and we just feel like it's going to grow more and more into the future.